Hi everyone, I'm Hanna. If you're new here, I have an allotment just outside Oxford, and I'm here to talk about growing carrots through winter. If you want to know more about what I get up to on a daily basis, I'm running a vlog project this year called the Allotment Year, where every week on a Friday morning I publish a new vlog just detailing what I've been up to that week. So if you want to know what it takes to have an allotment, check them out. So a few days ago I asked my Instagram followers what they find most difficult about growing carrots, and there was a huge influx of gripes and problems and issues. So carrots is one of those nemesis crops. Some people just cannot seem to grow them. I haven't had any trouble beyond maybe carrot root fly when I first started out. So I thought I'd go through some basic carrot growing tips as well. But first off, growing carrots through winter, you have a few options. If you're lucky enough to have a polytunnel or a greenhouse or a sturdy cold frame, you can grow them either in beds inside there or in deep pots. And they won't grow fast, but if you sow them early enough in autumn, you might have them cropping through winter. I actually have had this year some carrots in the ground all through winter, and I'm still getting carrots from them. So they are not large, they are not winter cropping carrots, they're just general carrots. So where I am in the UK, it doesn't freeze. The ground doesn't rarely freeze. It did freeze this year for like a week or two, but they seem to have survived okay. They're not pretty, but they're mainly for my dog who eats carrots every day. So I wouldn't recommend growing them outside through winter because they won't like it very much. But you can grow them under cover, and that's one option. So that option is best if you want to harvest large carrots through the winter. So that isn't really an option for me. I don't have enough space inside my greenhouse to do that. So the options I've gone for is to have these dog carrots through winter for the dog, and then I'm gonna wait for carrots for us to eat until spring. So to get as early a crop as possible, I am growing carrots through the winter by sowing a typical variety called Amsterdam forcing on the last of November, and they have germinated in the bed outside, and then I'm also sowing them now end of February. So those two sowings will give me carrots as soon as is feasibly possible. And I'm very excited. So the ones in November, I let them germinate inside in the bed. They were direct sown, always direct sown carrots, and they had a double layer of fleece over them, a thick fleece, 30-gram fleece, double layer, and they took about maybe 2 or 3 weeks to germinate, but they're up and they're slowly growing. And as soon now that the weather is warming up, the sunlight, the light levels will increase, they will get going. And then I have just now sowed another lot, and I will insert some footage of that. And that's basically just a few steps is involved with sowing carrots. I make sure it's a weed-free ground, I rake it over, and then I draw I draw a furrow with my dibber. If you're happy with smaller carrots, you can go sow them in rows 10 centimeters apart. If you want larger carrots, you can go up to 20 centimeters. I've gone for 20 here because I'm sowing it quite thickly with seeds. So it's a bit of you have to weigh it up. Maybe don't sow your carrots on a windy day like I did today, because the seeds just kind of fly all over the place. But if you happen to dump seeds in a lump somewhere, you can just pick up that with some soil and you can just sprinkle them onto where you want them to be. After you've sown your seeds, you can just pull the soil from either side of your furrow to cover them up, firm them in. I always do it by stepping on them. That's not everyone's cup of tea, but that's how I do it. Then I water it, and then because I've marked out where the lines of the carrots are, because I can never remember otherwise, and it's always good when you're weeding later in spring. I can use that to guide the fleece in place as well. So I've put thick, multiple layered fleece on there now because it was such a large sheet. But as soon as they pop up, I will make sure it's only a double layer maximum, so that enough sunlight can get through. And that's it. Did I say water? Yeah, water. And then you just wait. So now you might be thinking, but hang on, she's not really growing carrots through winter, is she? I mean, I sort of am. It isn't really something that is possible for me to do, because I would have to grow them in my polytunnel. And even so, the light levels are so low. So really what you should be doing is grow winter storing carrots, harvest them in autumn, and store them in a clamp or something like that, so that they keep their quality through winter and you can have a fresh supply of carrots. They won't be those gorgeous succulent spring carrots, right? But they'll be carrots. So moving on to problems that people have identified for me. So the first one that people complain about, and the one I experienced too, is carrot root fly. So that one isn't really active in winter, so you don't really need to worry about it. But come late spring and summer, they will start appearing. Well, this depends on, I guess, where you are. So I always keep my carrots covered either with fleece in the beginning, and that is both to germinate them and then protect the seedlings from wind. But the fleece will also protect against carrot root fly. Then when it gets too hot for fleece, I change that for a mesh, and that's a fine mesh that is designed for carrot root fly. Simple nets, I think they're called, do quite a good one. The other thing to think about with carrot root fly is they are attracted to the carrots when you touch the greens, right? So that releases that gorgeous scent, and that attracts them. So one way to avoid carrot root fly is to not touch them, not thin them, not weed them, not anything. So that's why having weed-free ground is really, really important, and I recommend going no dig for that, because you get much less weeds. And yeah, that's basically it. So if you have them covered, and if you touch them as little as possible, you won't have a problem with carrot root fly. I find that growing the resistant varieties isn't good enough for me, but that depends on where you are. I guess we are heavily infected here. It's an allotment site, So the other main problem people have is wonky carrots. Well, first of all, wonky carrots still taste fine. And if you have real issues with this, just buy a short chubby variety instead, like Oxfordshire. It's really fat shoulders, so you still get a lot of carrots, but it doesn't go so deep, so there's less risk of it forking. I don't mind either way. So carrots, this is why we direct sow carrots. If you sow carrots in modules to plant out, any root disturbance, even the tiniest of root disturbance, will cause them to fork. So I direct sow, that's the first tip. Second is to make sure your bed that you're growing them in does not have lots of stones or lots of hard bits of, like, I have some beds with like crusty manure underneath the compost, so I don't grow carrots in those beds. I am on heavy clay. Heavy clay is not a problem for carrots. They just need to be undisturbed, and then they will grow fine in clay. If you're unsure of the quality of your bed, the option for you might be to grow them in a container. So what you then do is you can mix your compost with a lot of sand. You can even grow carrots in straight sand if you want. People who grow those ginormous carrots for shows and competitions, I think they use sand and like pipes, you know, to keep them extra straight. But that's usually not what most people want. They just want a good harvest of straight carrots. So if you grow it in a deep trug, you can be in fully control of the substrate. So you can go really heavy with the sand, or you can do a 50-50 mix with compost, depending on. I never have sand on my plot, but I also don't find any problem growing carrots. So as I mentioned, any root disturbance will cause them to go wonky. So that includes coming back to the weeding and the thinning. So if you thin them, you risk disturbing the neighbors and then they will fork. If you do weeding, you risk disturbing the roots and they will fork. So leave your carrots alone and they will probably do fine. Some people complain about not even getting them to germinate, and all I can say is that carrot seed is one that is best bought fresh every year because they have a very short shelf life. That also is the same for parsnips. But the thing about buying seeds is that they only have a legal requirement to label the seed packets when they were packaged, not how old the seeds are. So try to buy good quality seed from companies that pride themselves of serving you fresh. So if you want to know a bit more about that, I have a blog post and another YouTube video just discussing what to think about when buying seeds. So to have the best success, buy the freshest seeds and the best quality seeds you can. And importantly, the right variety. If you want to grow them early in winter, go for one that is for that purpose. Like Amsterdam forcing. I go on about it over and over and over again, but it's a great variety to grow for an early crop, and yeah, I can't rave on about it enough, basically. So the other thing that people have mentioned is rabbits. I mean, rabbits are a bit tricky, but if you cover your carrots with mesh or with fleece, they should be fine. The other option is just netting to keep the carrots off. Keep the rabbits off, but the mesh or the fleece should be enough. So I don't know if this person has just left them uncovered and they've come in and nibbled them. I mean, I'm sure that would be fine, and it would be the same for deer or anything like that you have. If that's a problem, or birds, you know, if that's a problem where you are, you will have to cover your crops. And then the last one is poor growth, that they basically just don't grow anymore. So what I would say about that is carrots is actually quite a slow growing crop, and that's why I recommend growing maybe smaller varieties so you're quicker to crop, and sometimes they're tastier as well. Like, do people really enjoy eating those ginormous carrots? I know I don't. So there's lots of little mini ones that you can grow if you want a quick harvest. But the other thing is that make sure that your bed where you grow your carrots, or the truck that you're using, that it has a good quality compost, and if you're growing them in beds, that you use the no-dig method, or at least that you've added in a lot of organic matter if you do dig. So just digging over ground and then sowing carrots in there, it's not enough. You know, when you grow vegetables in soil, you're asking a lot of that soil, so you have to add nutrients, and the way to add nutrients is not through powders or pellets or artificial whatever. You know, the best way to do it is to add well-rotted manure, good quality compost, homemade compost, digestate, any of these things, right? So either you top dress like in no dig, or you dig it in, but you can't just leave it, you know, you can't just leave it without that. It needs that extra bit to get your vegetables to grow to size and to grow well. And that's just the basic of growing vegetables, isn't it? I have seen people grow carrots successfully in a veg truck, but I assume that depends on how deep it is. So if you are growing them in a veg truck, maybe grow for a small variety as well. There's lots and lots of fun varieties to grow. I myself have over 10 varieties of carrots to grow this year. So I don't know, I've gone a bit carrot crazy. I'm gonna start sowing them in March. So it's only the Amsterdam forcing that I'm sowing this early on. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If it was helpful at all, please consider subscribing. It all really helps. Let me know if you have any issues growing carrots that I didn't cover in this video, and yeah, I'll try to get back to you with that, on that. And if you don't believe that I'm a great carrot grower, head over to my Instagram and just look at the video and footage evidence.